Hello, everyone. This is Divine Erdrick. And guess what day has come and gone because I was in the hospital. Yes, this year's 413 saw me watching all of the shenanigans from my bedside at St. Joseph Hospital. And not only that, but when I got discharged, I came back to immediately get sick. So I'd planned on doing a whole rigmarole with music and video clips like I'd done for Cascade Day. Unfortunately, yeah, that's not going to happen right now. Another unfortunate side effect of that is that I had planned on going back and crediting and actually finding and putting on this video some of the original Reddit posts for things I'm going to mention below. But yeah, unfortunately, I'm not gonna have the energy to do this. But especially since it looks like the next update has already hit, and I kind of wanted to have this out there so that I can both be triumphant or more than likely have a ton of stuff rubbed in my face. Um, I wanted to make sure that this got done and released before I read the next update. Good news is, being sick is one of the few times when my lyric tenor uh, doesn't make my voice high pitched and annoying. So hopefully you are all enjoying baritone, Jason. Anyway, now what shenanigans am I talking about? Well, in case you've somehow missed it, the Homestuck epilogues have begun. Now, this could be exciting times for the fandom again with the return of update culture and everything that comes with it. That means new fan art, new fan fiction, new theories, new videos, and possibly even new fan animations. Now, while I was in the hospital, I recorded my full reading and reaction to chapters 1 through 3 of the prologue, because of course Homestuck's epilogue has a prologue. But I ultimately decided, especially now that Jen Laurel Levy's is doing a reaction, that I just digest what we have so far. So, first off, right off the bat, read the Homestuck epilogues. Epilogues. Plural. Because, of course, Homestuck would have more than one. It seems that predictions that the epilogue for Homestuck might follow in Problem Sleuth's footsteps are coming true. Then we click start and, oh, oh wow. I'm sick like this. I might actually have the voice to do this without having to do any pitch down. Meta. Seriously, this is so meta, it hurts. Now, a quick skip ahead. We're going to learn that this part of the epilogue is taking place outside of canon, as opposed to in canon or non-canon. So the current theory is that this will all be a framing device until John begins to retcon again. However, it is possible the whole epilogue will be this way, and this is another nod to the idea that Hussey saw Homestuck as growing beyond him, as was hinted at by Paradox Space and the old Homestuck 2.0. Which would mean that in many ways, the old Homestuck Act 8 and the still continuing Act Omega, or maybe I got those flipped, are just as viably canon as this epilogue. Still, with the whole epilogues plural thing, my money is on this being a multi-part epic journey that features guest contributors from around the fandom. And speaking of guest contributions, we see that in addition to Hussey, this prologue is written by Cephalid Variable, and I'm probably going to butcher this, also known as Jen Giesbrecht, and CT Set, aka the Mysterious V. For characters, we basically have everyone with the notable absence of Nepeta and Equius. But we also have Dave Peta and Arqueus, so technically they're still there. A lot of other minor characters, such as the Damcestors, the Midnight Crew, and even the Exiles, are also absent. And there's also no sign of any Guardian, including Dat Crocker. But we do have new characters that we will be meeting, possibly hinting we will see some of the inhabitants of Earthsea. Oh, and Obama. Barack Obama will be in the epilogues. I'm guessing not as an actual contributor. And then the tags. Troll Gigas the tags. V has said that these tags are actually serious. Of note are the sheer number of sexual tags, identity tags, and political tags. I'm not sure how I feel about sexual tags, although I do occasionally take pleasure in home smut. It's nearly all, well, Mindfang. I like Mindfang. Although I know a great deal of the Homestuck's readership grew up alongside the kids, I have trouble divorcing them from being the kids. And outside of the occasional age up or piece of adult humor, I'm not really all that interested in this aspect of their lives. I like my cute Aerosol and Rosemary. I should clarify that's Aerosol, not Aerosol, by the way. And I don't need to know about Jade, Dave, and Carcat's arrangement past their quadrants. I certainly don't need to know which of the characters are Chads and which are Cucks, although apparently that's something else I share in common with Carcat. As for the identity stuff, that's something Homestuck has always dabbled in, especially towards the end. And although I know there are a lot of people who see it as superfluous, I think it's important to know how the characters see themselves, particularly for them finding their own happiness. And as for the politics, well, Homestuck has always engaged in some pretty edgy political humor, especially for Alpha Timeline canon. And judging from the Skynet system's content, there might be crazy political references to come. Excuse me. But do keep in mind, there will be a lot of clown-related content. You have been warned. Continuing on, one important note for theory crafting that has happened so far is this synopsis mentions a choice John has to make, and we're going to get into that a bit later. But for now, it's been long enough. Let's enjoy some content. The prologue begins with John dreaming about Dead Calliope's symphony and the end of Paradox Space, appropriately in anime. Whether or not this means we'll get treated to another gorgeous Homestuck the anime, or this is just creating continuity from Act 7, well, that's going to have to be seen. It is John and Jane's, I don't want to forget about Jane, birthday. He is 23, and as was shown in the credits, John doesn't really care. But Rose does, especially since she has decided that something she has been putting off can't be put off any longer. Having something important to do seems to invigorate John, and we get a wonderful callback to the comic's beginning. Yet another sign that this epilogue will be quite substantial. Chapter 2 brings us to Rose's apartment. It's perhaps noteworthy that this is her apartment in the human kingdom, and that it is not mentioned as her and Kanaya's apartment. And yeah, this one really hits me hard. Rose is not doing well. She's having migraines because fuck, of course, they need to cause problems in Homestuck too. She's also trying and failing to assure all of us that she isn't abusing painkillers. But more importantly, her abilities as a god tier seer of light seem to be slowly overwhelming her. The barriers between her and all the accumulated knowledge of all of her alternate selves and apparently even further understanding is becoming more than she can physically bear. And this is one of the things I was worried about. This is the last time we saw Rosalind in the comic. She was smiling triumphantly next to Kanaya, watching the sun and the thanks for playing message, and now she seems to be wasting away. And yeah, I was originally intending on cutting away there to Act 7. I'm very worried that this is an instrumentality versus End of Evangelion situation, where Act 7 is the last chance we get to see the kids happy, and things are only going to go downhill from here. Rose goes on to explain the situation. First, we have a new presentation of just what exactly the light represents for Rose's seer powers. She contrasts the notion of good and bad with essential and something worse. And this might be a hint at the duality between light and void. Basically, Rose's abilities appear to have always been about navigating the path to maintaining reality and avoiding doomed timelines that will fade away. We received confirmation the Green Sun is gone from Earthsea's perspective and that Jade can't draw power from it anymore. We also get a throwaway line that Jade, Dave, and Karkat are all together. And then Rose just comes out and says that John needs to go back and fight Lord English. Then we get an interesting conversation that differentiates three states with regards to canon: in canon, out of canon, and non canon. Earthsea appears to be entirely outside of canon, so I guess kids escaping the narrative confirmed? However, although events outside of canon can be seen as true, apparently it's conditional. And the way the conversation reads, it feels very much like that condition is whether or not any of us care, and the MSPA readers. Now, there have been other explanation proposed for the dissipation Rose discusses here, but it feels very much like what's being said is this. Act 7 gave us a happy ending for the characters, but a large portion of the fandom feels that Act 7 didn't answer enough of the remaining narrative to be a proper denouement. Therefore, Jean and the epilogue have to wrap things up, especially where Lord English is concerned, or Act 7 won't matter because too much of the fandom won't care. Yeah, this is getting really meta. Rose even uses the terms relevant and discredited to describe the situation, as if Homestuck is in danger of having its narrative discredited and thus cease to be relevant. Now, on the plus side, Rose comes out and says that non-canon events can still be very relevant and essential, which might be another sign that projects like Act 8 and Act Omega were outcomes Hussey both intended and appreciates, even if he never actively endorses them. It also might just mean that because we, the fandom, love certain fan works, they are relevant and essential. In many ways, a lot of this just seems like a very meta way of talking about audience and death of the author. Basically, all of Homestuck, Hiveswap, and the fan works are as important as we decide they are. And this is the story of John's quest to make Homestuck and the lives of the characters on Earthsea important again. So, moving away from all of these feels and speculations, we do get a side note that Rose is texting with Kanaya. So, thank you for at least a little rosemary there. We then discover that John will not be taking the Earthsea kids with him, as many of us have speculated. Instead, he will group up some of the kids from a failed timeline, possibly the one he had to fix, and taking on Lord English with them. So this means that the kids will be able to enjoy their lives on Earthsea happily past the epilogue, except for John, but there's more to come there. This finally gives us an explanation for why none of the trolls go on to challenge Lord English in the masterpiece, well, save Arqueus. John is specifically being instructed to grab the God tier kids. Rose then gives John a set of instructions, which feels kind of like a callback to Terezi's scarf. And we learn John will have to punch someone, specifically another girl. I see two primary candidates for this. Candidate one, John will have to knock some sense into Rose before she becomes an alcoholic. Candidate two, John will have to punch another circuit, perhaps Arania, since she's confirmed to be in the epilogue. There's also the possibility that he has to deck Jade or Jane, but I don't see why he would be punching one and not the other, since both end up under the Condes's control. And especially with how difficult it was to free Jane, where they really actually needed Arqueus and that combined skill set of Equius and Dirk's autoresponder, it just makes more sense that he will jump in before Jade's arrival in the alpha session. We then get another description of Rose in her terrible new state and a poignant farewell between the two, with a heavy implication that Rose knows she's saying goodbye to John for the last time. And with that, we end the chapter, and John gets an invite from Roxy, and we jump to something slightly less depressing. Chapter 3 has John meeting for a picnic with Roxy and Calliope. My fellow Roxygen shippers and I then shed a single tear as we learn that John has never followed up with Roxy on Earthsea. Roxy and Calliope are still a singularity of adorable, though. And on the whole, this chapter is a breath of fresh air after witnessing more of the end of Paradox Space and the fate of Rose Lalonde. Roxy confirms there has been somewhat of a breaking up of the gang, but also assuages any fears regarding the fate of Kanai and Rose. Calliope then presents what is probably the most important and potentially relieving part of Chapter 3. Fighting Lord English is a choice. This is crucial because remember that in Homestuck, when there is a substantial enough choice, the timeline can diverge. Since Earthsea is outside of canon, there's no reason to believe that a timeline in which John decides not to fight needs to fade away. And since non-canon stuff can still be relevant and essential, any writing about such a timeline wouldn't necessarily have to be dismissed. Now, this means, despite all the foreboding, we can have our epilogue and Act 7 too. Happy kids, while still getting a narrative conclusion that we all desire. There's also a brief discussion as to how much of a role Dirk has had in all of this, but apparently he's been talking to Rose and Roxy as well about this plan. The chapter then ends with another choice, but this time it's for us. Meat or candy? This is almost certainly a reference to Hussey's notes in the Viz Homestuck books about writing meat versus candy. The Homestuck Twitter even asked us what our choice was, and in case you're wondering, after how these epilogues have started, I voted for candy. I could use a little bit more light and fluffy for a bit. I'm guessing since the epilogues have apparently already been written, we'll eventually get both choices in one form or another. But for now, we'll have to see what the fandom decides. So yeah, Homestuck is back, baby. After being pressed, Via said the earliest the next part will be out is this weekend, aka today. And it's likely everything I've had to deal with that this update will possibly beat this video out, kind of as I said before. But I'm not going to read the update until I get this video up, so that any or all of this can be rubbed in my face later. And then as a matter of fact, Homestuck currently has claimed 420 on the Homestuck Twitter. And V has once again said that, asked us all if we are ready for some Homestuck. But yeah, So I'm going to try, hopefully my body will cooperate, to get any of the videos for the next updates out sooner. Expect my own update schedule to be erratic and mostly based around the epilogues. I'll still be trying to get some more Geeking Out Path of Exile done in between, but it's going to depend on how quickly the epilogues update. Until the next chapter, this has been Divine Erdrick. I'll see you all on Earthsea.